I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just
Go down to Jacksonville, Florida. Go to Buffalo.
That this is toxic
I think
rhetoric.
that this
You're a
debate,
jackass.
I think that this
on
debate
dividing
is,
us on the basis of race, and I want to have
I
the
think
open
this
debate.
debate-
Dude's talking about toxic rhetoric as he's calling one of the most high-profile black lawmakers in this country a grand wizard of the KKK. But this one's a doozy. This one's a doozy even for Mr. 9/11 denying COVID hoaxer Vivek Ramaswamy.
racism I have experienced. I have experienced racism comes from the modern left at a scale unimaginable, because I think they feel a sense of betrayal, saying that you're not speaking in the tone that you're supposed to.
Racism on a scale unimaginable. And he is doing this a day before, the day of, a neo-Nazi shooting up a Dollar General.
Racism comes from the modern left at a scale unimaginable, because I think they feel a sense of betrayal, saying that you're not speaking in the tone that you're supposed to. You literally did. So Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, I believe not putting words in anybody else's mouth. I believe taking people at their own terms on their own words. Right? So I don't believe in straw men. Ayanna Pressley, she's in the Congress today. She's a member of the squad. Her words, not mine. We don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. Literally word for word. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. Ibram Kendi.
Okay, and?
Literally word for word. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. Ibram Kendi wrote the book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I wrote Woke Inc. It was a pretty successful book. His sold more copies than mine. Here's what it says. Opening lines. The remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. So the other side will gaslight you when you say this stuff. It's like, oh, you're just making that critical race theory stuff up. No. These aren't my words. These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK.
Wow! Now, I've also got to point out this poster behind him. Apparently, this is like a new version of the this is the Republican Ten Commandments. First of all, isn't that disrespectful to your God, which you claim is real? Number 2 says there are 2 genders. There's 2 gender categories. Gender is a made-up thing. And I guess there's not 2 gender categories because there's people that don't fit into the binary concept. But that's neither here nor there. Human flourishing requires fossil fuels. I did not know that humans didn't flourish for the thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. I had no idea. Reverse racism is racism. I still have no idea an example of reverse racism. An open border is no border. A border where there are record numbers of apprehensions isn't an open border, dipshit. Parents determine the education of their children. I don't even know what to say about I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to educate a child. If I had a child, I certainly wouldn't want me to be the one to educate them. I'd want to send them to somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about. Like that dipshit that came on here and tried to ask me all kinds of questions about evolution. I'm like, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. And he tried to take that as like some sort of gotcha or something. And it's like, no. I'm aware enough of when I'm out of my depth. to admit that, like, hey, let me defer to somebody who knows better than me, because I don't know jack about science. But I know enough to know that you don't either, dipshit. Borg, good evening. Ramaswamy was taken to task for his stupid-ass comments by Dana Bash earlier today on CNN. Apparently it got really contentious.
And I can think of no better way to fuel racism in this country than to take something away from other people on the basis of their skin color. I've been saying that for years. And I think that is driving, sadly, a new wave of anti-black and anti-Hispanic racism in this country. I think the right way forward is if we want to stop hate and discrimination on the basis of race, let's stop discriminating on the basis of race and see what unites us as Americans, because I do not think this kind of racial division and any division is good for us as the United States.
Sir, you're in a party who will never fucking vote for you. And most of them would want to throw you from a helicopter if they could. You absolute moron. Jesus Christ.
United States.
I believe that there are a lot of people of color in this country who don't think it was just lasting embers of racism, but that a lot more work had to be done, particularly given the history of the systemic racism in this country with slavery and beyond. I want to ask you about a comment that you made about white supremacy in Iowa on Friday.
I've never once encountered that yet. I'm sure the boogeyman white supremacist exists somewhere in America. I've just
Go down to Jacksonville, Florida. Go to Buffalo. Go to was it Santa Fe? Was that where we had the shooter in Texas that went into a Walmart? I mean, I guess anything is possible when you lie.
just never met him. Never seen one. Never met one in my life, right? Maybe I'll meet a unicorn sooner. And maybe those exist too.
So just because somebody hasn't encountered one doesn't mean that the notion of white supremacy doesn't exist as a threat in America. What do you think goes
Motherfucker, Sparkles took me to a Mexican restaurant, mind you, in the county in Alabama one time. We went out because we lived in a pretty progressive city. But we went out into the county one time to a Mexican restaurant. We're walking in, and I look at her, and I'm like, is that the Iron Cross on that dude's neck? And she's like, yes, it is. I just left my fucking city for a few minutes and saw one walking into a Mexican goddamn restaurant.
through the minds of the families of the 3 victims in yesterday's shooting when they hear you say that white supremacy is a fantasy?
I'm sure they're grieving for their loss, and I don't want to politicize those victims. Dana, this is a very sensitive situation where we should have nothing but foremost respect for those victims and not bring them into partisan politics. But I was responding to a question where someone asked me, what racism have I experienced in recent years? And I answered honestly. Most of that racism has come from the modern left. It's happening during the course of this campaign. Kara Swisher calling me Ramaswamy the other day and reveling in making twists of my last name. People effectively reducing me to the color of my skin and my attributes. That comes today from the modern left.
Buddy, you should see the comments on the debate fucking video on BitChute. They don't like you.
Part of a
that
dogma
white
in this
supremacy
country.
does still exist in the United States?
I acknowledge that all forms of racial animus exist in the United States, including fringe branches. I mean, that's clearly what was at the head of this mentally deranged individual responsible for this shooting, yes. But I think there are many forms of mental derangement that cause us...
And you know, if Ramaswamy, if he don't like people playing on other people's names, perhaps he should take a shot at Donald Trump, because Trump loves to do that shit.
One another on the basis of our skin color and our attributes. And I think what we need to revive, Dana, and it's my job as the leader, hopefully as the next president, to do this, to revive our doctrine of e pluribus unum, not just celebrating our diversity and our skin-deep attributes, but celebrating what unites us across that diversity. That's what we've forgotten in the United
What does e pluribus unum mean? Where we go one, we go all?
That unite us. That's my job to revive as our next
Is that what Vivek thinks it means?
generation in particular is so starved for that. Starved for commonality, starved for a nation that is unified, bigger than the sum of its parts. That's what we need to recreate in this country. And to those who say the remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, I say no. The right remedy is actually abandoning all discrimination and moving forward with colorblind meritocracy in the United States of America.
You took it to
Where's this meritocracy at?
Friday. In addition to the comment we played, you took issue with comments from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She reportedly said, quote, "We don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." About that, you said, "These are the words of the modern grand wizards of the modern KKK." You know, I'm sure, the KKK was responsible for more than a century's worth of horrific lynchings, rapes, murders of black people. How in any way are the views you're talking about comparable to the views
He doesn't want to politicize it, though.
committed by the KKK?
What I said is the Grand Wizards of the KKK would be proud of what they would hear her say, because there's nothing more racist than saying that your skin color predicts something about the content of your viewpoints or your ideas.
You didn't just say they would be proud. You said these are the words of the modern Grand Wizards of the modern KKK.
It is the same spirit. You're right about that, Dana. I think it is the same spirit to say that I can look at you and based on just your skin color, that I know something about the content of your character.
I think you're putting words in her mouth.
Of the viewpoints you're allowed to express. For Ayanna Pressley to tell me that because of my skin color I can't express my views, that is wrong. It is divisive. It is driving hate in this country. This is dividing our country to a breaking point.
That is a debate that is based on nonviolent discussion. That you just said you're using rhetoric, which she said she's using rhetoric. That's one thing. And another thing is to say that she represents and she is
just making a joke, Flash.
of a KKK, which, as you know, was dedicated to the subjugation and violence against black people. How on earth is she a modern Grand Wizard of that kind of organization?
BB girl.
Let's be intellectually honest.
Ramaswamy said that Ibram X. Kennedy and Representative Ayanna Pressley are the modern Grand Wizards of the modern KKK.
Be honest and get to the heart of what this debate ought to be about. There is a worldview that says that the remedy to past discrimination is present
DJ
discrimination.
Dub.
If you're black or brown, you have to have a particular point of view. That's from Ibram Kendi. That's from Ayanna Pressley, the people I quoted in my speech yesterday.
But can
There's
you
a
have
different
an
view
intellectually
that I have,
honest
which says that regardless
conversation
of who you are,
when you accuse
have to
her
be able
of
to have your own
being a
opinion.
Grand Wizard
Let's
of
have
the
the debate.
KKK? Can you have that
I think that
intellectually
the
honest
point is-
discussion with that kind of rhetoric?
Yes, I can, Dana, because the point I'm highlighting is that even the people who win good
Batshit crazy.
that the KKK was an awful organization that is a toxic stain in our national history. So given
No, many of the voters that you are courting don't believe that, actually. I hate to break it to you, but many Republican voters do not believe that about the KKK.
can start from that point of agreement, now that allows us to say, well, who actually sounds more like that organization today? The people who are calling for more racial discrimination on the basis of skin color. So yes, I think that is an intellectually useful starting point for a provocative discussion that we need to have in this country.
The whole point is the KKK wasn't just about rhetoric.
We have to speak openly.
They lynched people, they murdered people, they raped people, they burned their homes.
And that was wrong.
Simply
that was obviously
because
wrong.
So
wrong.
Okay, so again,
that is obviously a wrong.
And their supporters downplayed their violence.
Do you think that maybe comparing her
and said that their opponents were the real racists
to the Grand Wizard and the notion of what she said to being a modern leader of the KKK was maybe a step too far, or you stand by what you said?
I stand by what I said to provoke an open and honest discussion in this country, because there is a gap, Dana, between what people will say in private today and what they will say in public. I think we need to close that gap. I think we need to have real, open, honest, raw conversation as Americans.
Exactly, Flash.
It's our path to national unity. And there are many Americans today who are deeply frustrated by the new culture of anti-racism that's really racism in new clothing. And we need to have that debate in the open.
I mean, I've told this story on stream before. I was dating a woman in Alabama, and I'll be goddamned if I didn't go to her house and her had a picture of her grandfather on the wall in his KKK robes. Now, she was very progressive. I even asked her, like, don't you feel weird having that up on the wall? And then she had it was on the wall with like all the family fucking shit. And then she had a mixed race granddaughter and took her to a cotton field and took pictures of her in the cotton field. And I'm like, that don't feel wrong to you? You don't think there's something wrong with that?
Dana, I think
I'm
that
not so sure how
with due
provoking
respect,
a
what many in the
discussion
media do,
of
picking on.
But then, to illustrate, that's how a liberal living in Alabama was, softening the edges of her family ties. Imagine what a conservative in Alabama, what their thoughts on their ties to the KKK is.
Some fringe comment in the context of a broader context that I was offering it in a speech.
All right, so you just said that your comment was fringe.
Let's have the courage to confront the meat of that. I'm saying you drew a fringe comment from a much longer speech. As I described you picking one fringe comment from a long speech that I gave to duck debate from the real issue that I think you don't want to have, Dana, because I think you probably agree with me on this, that this is toxic rhetoric.
You're a jackass.
I think that this debate
on dividing us on the basis of race, and I want to have the open debate.
Dude's talking about toxic rhetoric as he's calling one of the most high-profile black lawmakers in this country a grand wizard of the KKK. Goddamn, motherfucker, learn to feel embarrassment.
It is fascinating and interesting and opening and important. What I did was
I do too.
Explain to our viewers that you were asked a question and you took it to a point where you called a sitting member of Congress who is black, who was having discussions about race, calling her the modern grand wizard of the KKK, and I'm just not sure.
And then had the fucking audacity to claim that they were coming at you with toxic rhetoric. Jesus Christ.
That's open and
I hate this dude.
I want to move on, though, to another issue, a very important issue, and that is
before
climate
I move on,
change.
I want to say that the
Sure,
question was,
please.
how was I actually able to speak? And her view is I can't share certain views because my skin color is brown. I disagree with her, and we should have that debate in the open. But yes, let's talk about climate change because this is critical.
You're a fucking jackass.
You said on Friday that a man-made climate change has existed as long as man has existed. But I want to read to you part of what the Trump administration said in a report. It said that the Earth's climate is now changing faster than at any point in the history of...
And apparently Vivek actually believed in climate change a couple of years ago.
Modern civilization, primarily
No, he doesn't.
as a result of human activities. Do you acknowledge that that is true?
Here's what I acknowledge is true. Hard facts. The climate disaster-related death rate, tornadoes, hurricanes, heat waves, it is...
Well, that was a weird place to cut that off. I was going to see what he had to say about climate change. Let's continue on with race, because a family that knows quite a bit about race relations in this country was in Washington this weekend to commemorate the 60th anniversary of MLK's March on Washington. And they don't think it's getting any better, Ramaswamy.
Instead of moving forward, it feels as if we're moving backward. The question is, what are we going to do? Dad would probably say, now is the time. We must preserve, protect, and expand democracy. We must ensure that voting rights is protected for all people. We must ensure that our women and children are treated fairly. We must end gun violence.
We are not here for commemoration. We are here for rededication to the fight for a future where at long last America's practice will be as good as its promise. And let me say to the women, we weren't able to speak in 1963, but we are here in 2023.
They will not be able to turn back the clock. They want to stop blacks from voting. We're going to vote anyhow. No matter how hard you make it, we coming anyhow. They're going to try to put women back in the kitchen with an apron. We're not going back in the kitchen. We're not putting the apron back on. They're trying to tell gays get back in the closet.
Seriously, look at that drip.
Back in the closet. We're going to lock the closet. We're going to stand up for who we are and where we are and what we are. Our fathers fought for this, and we're going to maintain it. 60 years ago, Martin Luther King talked about a dream. 60 years later, we're the dreamers. The dreamers are in Washington, D.C. The schemers are being booked in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Fulton County Jail. The dreamers will win. The dreamers will march. The dreamers will stand up. Black, white, Jewish, LGBTQ. We are the dreamers. We're the children of the dream. Let us march in the name of the dreamers.
The signer is more charismatic than Al Sharpton. But I must say that I was probably most impressed by the first speaker. The first speaker was MLK the Third. Martin Luther King the Third. This is actually his wife, and she seemed like a far more charismatic speaker. I was very impressed with her. But yeah, this ASL dude over here, fucking A. '60th anniversary of MLK's March on Washington, held over the weekend. The King family believes that we have actually regressed in the last 60 years.